"You're not half the woman my mother is." The words sliced through the air that evening as I served the dessert I had prepared with so much love. A heavy silence fell over the dining room. My heart pounded in my chest. Without thinking, I pushed my chair back and replied, "Then she can start paying your rent." My son Robert went completely pale. "Rent? What rent?" he exclaimed, eyes wide. At that moment, I knew my life was about to change forever, that this revelation was only the beginning of a story no one had seen coming. My name is Shirley. I'm 70 years old. That night, I learned that a mother's unconditional love can sometimes become her greatest vulnerability. For 6 months, I had been secretly paying the $800 monthly rent for the apartment where Robert and Valerie lived. I had believed it was my duty to support my son through financial struggles. I never imagined that while I was sacrificing my life's savings, they saw me as a Badena woman they could humiliate without consequence. It all began 6 months earlier, when Robert came to my house, tears in his eyes. "Mum, I lost my job. We can't afford the rent. It'll only be for a few months, until I find something," he said, voice breaking. Like any mother who loves her child, I didn't hesitate. I dipped into the savings I had painstakingly built over decades as a seamstress, and quietly paid their rent without Valerie's knowledge. "It's our secret, Mom," Robert had pleaded. "I don't want Valerie to feel bad about depending on you." How naive I was. I believed he was protecting his wife's pride, but in truth, he was protecting his own image as a provider. While I counted every dollar to help them, they lived as if nothing had changed. Dinners out, new clothes, vacations I knew they couldn't afford. That night's dinner had been special. I had spent the entire day cooking Robert's favorite meal: chicken with mushroom sauce, rice with vegetables, and the vanilla pudding he loved as a child. The table was set perfectly with the crystal glasses I had inherited from my mother, the silver cutlery reserved for occasions like this. Valerie arrived in an elegant red dress, her shoes likely costing more than my monthly groceries. From the moment they walked in, I sensed a shift in the atmosphere. Valerie's smile was forced, the one she always used when about to do something cruel. Robert seemed nervous, avoiding my gaze, fidgeting with his phone. Throughout dinner, Valerie criticized everything: the temperature of the food, the decor, even the scent of the air freshener. "Surely, don't you think it's time to freshen this place up? My mother's home is so modern, she has trendy, minimalist pieces," she sneered. I smiled politely, trying to maintain harmony, but inside irritation simmered. I had lived in that house for 30 years. Every corner held a memory, every object a story. When dessert arrived, I hoped for a moment of warmth. I had made that pudding with love, recalling how Robert used to devour it and declare I was the best cook in the world. Instead, Valerie's words struck like a knife. You're not half the woman my mother is. I froze, spoon suspended midair, my throat tight. Valerie looked at me with cruel satisfaction, as if she had waited all night for the perfect moment. Robert lowered his head, avoiding my eyes. In that instant, I knew they had planned this humiliation together. Excuse me, I managed, voice trembling, though I had heard her clearly. Valerie leaned back, feigning elegance. You heard me. My mother is successful, independent. She built her own empire. She's never needed anyone. She has her own company, a beach house in Florida, trips to Europe. You just know how to cook. And so each word hammered at my heart. I remembered the decades I had spent sewing from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m., altering suits, embroidering tablecloths, sacrificing my own comfort for Robert, sleepless nights caring for him, selling my jewelry to pay for his tuition, working double shifts so he could have everything while they plotted to humiliate me. Valerie, please, Robert muttered weakly. Those two words, supposedly a defense, were worse than silence. They confirmed his complicity. No, Robert, let me finish, Valerie said in that high-pitched, condescending voice. Your mother needs to hear the truth. My mother would never have let her son live in this mediocrity. She would have helped us get something better. She wouldn't have kept us in poverty with her false kindness. Something inside me snapped. For 6 months, I had been the one keeping a roof over their heads, depriving myself of medicine for arthritis, eating rice and eggs, wearing worn-out shoes, even selling my husband's wedding ring to make sure they had a home. I rose slowly, adrenaline surging. All right, Valerie, I said, calm but firm. If your mother is so superior, then she can take over the responsibilities a successful woman should have. Robert looked confused. Valerie's smug smile faltered. Exactly, Shirley. Glad you understand your place in this family. I understand my place perfectly, I replied, and it no longer includes paying the $900 a month for your apartment at 420 Hamilton Street, Unit 3. That's $1,000 total, including fees, from my bank account, so you could live comfortably while disrespecting me. Robert collapsed into his chair. But you said you talked to the landlord, that he was giving you time, he stammered. I lied, I admitted. I lied because I wanted to help you. I thought it was temporary. I thought you'd be grateful. But now I see that to you, I'm just a silly old woman who deserves humiliation. Valerie tried to speak, but I cut her off. Of course, you didn't know, because your husband chose to lie to you. He wanted you to believe he earned the money himself. Mediocre. I spat the word with such venom that Valerie recoiled. Robert finally exploded. Mum, I never wanted this. You insisted. I didn't ask you to sacrifice so much. I insisted. I yelled, tears streaming down my face. You came to me sobbing, saying you couldn't even afford bread. What kind of mother would I have been if I had closed my door on you? The silence was deafening. Robert looked at Valerie. She returned the gaze with equal intensity. Lies, secrets, and betrayal hung in the air. You know what hurts the most, Robert? I continued, my voice trembling with rage. It's not the money. It's that every time you came to visit, I saw contempt in your eyes. You and Valerie criticized my house, my food, my clothes, my manners, all while not knowing that my money had been keeping a roof over her head. You just let her do it. Robert tried to step closer, but I raised a hand and took a step back. Mom, please. Let me explain. There's nothing to explain. I cut him off sharply. The explanation had already spilled out in the air. Your wife believes I'm not half the woman her mother is. Well, then her mother can prove how capable she is by taking care of her own responsibilities. Valerie finally found her voice, though it trembled. They were said in a moment of, I laughed bitterly. A moment of what? You were upset about having to eat at the home of the woman paying your rent. Upset because you had to pretend to be polite with someone you consider inferior. The tension was suffocating, almost tangible. Robert paced the dining room like a caged animal, while Valerie sat twisting a napkin between her trembling hands. You know the saddest part, I continued, a strange calm settling over me. I really believed we were a family. When I married your father, Robert, I dreamed of children, of grandchildren running through this house, of laughter and love filling our dinners. And when you finally came, after years of trying, I thought God had given me the greatest gift in the world. Robert stopped, tears welling in his eyes. Mum, I love you. You know I love you. Love isn't just words, son. Love is actions. Respect, protection. When your wife insults me and you stay silent, when you let her humiliate me in my own home, when you lie to me to hide that you depend on me financially, that isn't love, that's convenience. Valerie jumped up, knocking over her chair. That's enough. I'm not standing here listening to this sermon, Robert. We're leaving now. Her voice carried her usual arrogance, but I saw panic flicker in her eyes. No, Robert said firmly, surprising both of us. We're not leaving until we sort this out. Mum, please, sit down. We need to talk like adults. But I had already made my decision. There's nothing left to talk about, Robert. The cards are on the table. Valerie has made her feelings about me very clear, and you've shown that you agree with her. Starting tomorrow, I will no longer pay your rent. If your mother is as superior as you claim, I'm sure she'll find a way to help you. But, Mum, you can't do that, Robert cried. For the first time all night, I saw genuine terror in his eyes. We don't have the money. I was fired 2 weeks ago. I was going to tell you after dinner, he confessed. His words hit like a bomb. You were fired 2 weeks ago. And you didn't tell me. You let your wife humiliate me while you depended entirely on my generosity. My voice shook, not from sadness, but from pure rage. Valerie turned to Robert, eyes blazing. What? You were fired 2 weeks ago and didn't tell me. I've been spending as if everything's normal while you... She couldn't finish. Her hands flew to her face, sobbing like an actress in a soap opera. Valerie, please let me explain, Robert started. Don't tell me to calm down, she snapped. Just yesterday, I bought $400 shoes. Last week, I booked a spa for my birthday, Robert. We're broke and you let me spend like an idiot. Her tears had ruined her makeup. The mask of superiority had crumbled, revealing panic and desperation. Asterisk. I watched the surreal scene, a strange mix of satisfaction and pain washing over me. For months, I had carried the weight of supporting them. Now they were finally facing reality. Robert slumped in his chair, defeated. You know the most pathetic part of this, Robert, I said, my voice eerily calm. Even now, after discovering you've lied to me and allowed this humiliation, my first instinct is still to ask if you need help. That's what a mother does. That's what unconditional love does. Robert looked up, and for a moment I saw the little boy who once ran to me after nightmares. Mum, I lost my job because I was late 3 times in a row. Valerie had appointments, and I had to take her to the doctor. Valerie cut him off with a murderous glare. I wasn't sick. I had appointments for my beauty treatments. Don't use me as an excuse for your irresponsibility. The elegant, confident woman had vanished. She now looked vulgar and desperate. Beauty treatments, I asked incredulously. You mean my son lost his job because he had to take you to beauty appointments while I sold my jewelry to pay for your roof? A bitter laugh escaped me. Robert stepped toward me, hands pleading, Mum, please, I know I made mistakes. I failed you, but you can't abandon us. We have nowhere to go. Valerie's parents are in Europe. They're not, Valerie interrupted. You told me to lie so they wouldn't worry. One lie after another peeled back like layers of a rotten onion. How many jobs have you lost, Raboob? I asked quietly. How many times have you lied to me? The silence was deafening. Robert couldn't meet my eyes. Valerie sobbed again, but this time it was real, as if the magnitude of their situation finally sank in. 3 jobs in the last 2 years, Robert admitted, voice broken. I always made excuses. Downsizing. Temporary. He looked at me, eyes pleading. Mum, I think I have a real problem. For the first time all night, I felt a spark of compassion. My son wasn't just a liar, he was someone in need of help. But compassion didn't erase betrayal. It didn't heal the wounds their words had opened in my heart. Admitting you have a problem is the first step, I said slowly, but I cannot be your safety net while you do nothing to change. I cannot sacrifice my well-being to maintain a life built on lies. Valerie wiped her tears with the sleeve of her red dress. This is ridiculous. Shirley, you're his mother. Mothers don't abandon their children. My mother would never do this. I met her gaze with icy calm. You're right about one thing, Valerie. Mothers don't abandon their children. But I am not abandoning my son. I am teaching him and you a lesson about responsibility, respect, and consequences. I'm stopping him from using me. Robert approached me and took my hands in his. They were cold and trembling. Mum, I promise I'm going to change. I'm going to get help. I'm going to find a job. I'm going to make things right this time. Just give me one more chance. I looked at those hands, once so small, that I'd held when he learned to walk, when he was afraid of the dark, when he needed comfort after a nightmare. Robert, how many last chances have I given you? How many times have you made me the same promise? He couldn't answer because we both knew the answer. I had lost count of the times we'd had this very conversation of the broken promises and crushed hope. Your lease is up next month, I announced, gently pulling my hands from his. You have 30 days to find a solution. After that, I will no longer be responsible for your housing. Valerie stormed toward the door. Let's go, Robert. I'm not staying here to be humiliated by a woman who doesn't understand what family means. But Robert didn't move. Valerie, you can go if you went. I need to talk to my mother. His voice had a firmness I hadn't heard in years, and for a moment, just for a moment, I saw a glimmer of the man heckled have been Valerie. Stopped dead in her tracks when she heard Robert's words. She turned slowly, her expression a mix of disbelief and pure fury. You're asking me to leave after everything Eva sacrificed for this marriage. Her voice had become shrill, almost hysterical, and she gesticulated with her hands as if conducting an invisible orchestra. Valerie, please, I need to sort this out with my mum. Too much has happened tonight. Robert tried to explain. Butch cut him off with a gasp that probably woke up the entire block. No, I'm not going anywhere. If you're going to grovel like a dog in front of your mother, you're going to do it with me here. She crossed her arms and planted herself firmly in the center of my dining room like a statue of stubbornness. Besides, this conversation fits me directly. If she stops paying our rent, where are we going to live? In a homeless shelter? I watched the scene with a mix of fascination and horror. In a single night, I had seen the perfect facade. Valerie stood up abruptly, as if the weight of my revelations had snapped the last thread of her composure. This is impossible. You can't be serious, she shouted, her voice trembling between disbelief and rage. I remained calm, letting her fury hang in the air like smoke. Do you know what's impossible? Spending decades giving everything for a family that doesn't value you. A family that sees your sacrifices as an opportunity to humiliate you. That's impossible. Robert's lips quivered. Mom, please, don't do anything rash. You can't just leave because of tonight. Michael might be— Stop, Robert, I interrupted sharply, my voice cutting through the room like a knife. Stop trying to control me. For 35 years, I've lived for you every choice, every sacrifice, every sleepless night. And now, for the first time in decades, I am living for myself. The silence that followed was suffocating. Robert sank into a chair, his face buried in his hands, sobbing like the little boy I once comforted. Valerie sat frozen, a mixture of shock, fury, and terror painting her features. I continued, voice growing steadier, stronger with every word. Do you know what Michael told me? He said he's kept a photo of me from when we were 21, in the white dress with red flowers that I made myself. He said, after his wife died, he often wondered if I had truly been happy, if I had managed to fulfill my dreams. Robert lifted his tear-streaked face. And what did you tell him, Mom? I smiled a soft, genuine smile, the first of the evening. I told him the truth. I told him that I had moments of happiness when you were little, when your father was alive, when I believed I was building a beautiful life with my family. But I also told him that I had given so much of myself that I no longer remembered who Shirley was before I became Robert's mother, Charles's widow, and now I intend to rediscover her. Valerie's hands trembled as she reached for her chair, her face pale. You can't just abandon everything. We're your family. Family, I said with a bitter laugh. You call this a family? Spent years showing me contempt, undermining me, and watching me sacrifice myself while you take and take without gratitude. No, that is not a family. That is tyranny disguised as kinship. I stood taller, feeling the weight of decades lift from my shoulders. I am leaving, and I will go with someone who sees me, values me, and respects me, not someone who uses me as an ATM or a doormat. Michael will show me life, beauty, and adventure, and if I fall, at least I will fall living for myself. Robert's voice cracked as he reached out, trembling. Mum, Shirley, please don't. We need you. Don't throw us away over tonight. I shook my head slowly, resolute. No, Robert. I am not throwing you away. I am reclaiming myself. I am choosing to live for Shirley, not for the expectations of ungrateful children or a vindictive daughter-in-law. Valerie's chair clattered to the floor as she sank into it, defeated. This is insane. You can't just leave. Insane? I asked, stepping closer, my eyes blazing. You think it's insane to value yourself, to honor your dreams, to refuse to be treated like a servant in your own home. Then call me insane. I am free. I am alive. And for the first time in decades, I am happy. I paused, letting the words sink into the stunned silence of the dining room. And Robert, if you ever want to see your mother again, you will learn respect. If not, I will not beg for your presence. I have lived long enough for others, will now live for me. The clock ticked slowly in the background, marking the moment a woman reclaimed her life, her dignity, and her dreams. Valerie covered her face, sobbing, and Robert slumped, defeated. But I felt light, unburdened, ready to step into a future I had never allowed myself to imagine. And that night, for the first time in decades, Shirley Montgomery smiled not as a mother, not as a widow, not as a caretaker, but as herself. Robert stood up and started pacing my small kitchen, his hands ringing nervously. I got a job at a cleaning service, Mum. Early mornings, long hours, but it's honest work. I want to start taking responsibility for my life instead of leaning on you all the time. I leaned against the counter, watching him carefully. That's a good start. But what about your finances, your choices, the patterns you've fallen into for years? He nodded quickly. I'm cutting back. I've cancelled unnecessary subscriptions, stopped going out to restaurants I can't afford, and I'm tracking every dollar I spend. I even started a small savings account so I won't have to ask anyone for help ever again. I could see the sincerity in his eyes, the humility he hadn't shown in years. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And therapy? I asked. He took a deep breath. Yes, I'll keep going. I'm learning to face my mistakes, my dependency, my failures, everything. I want to grow, Mum, not just for you, but for me, for the first time in my life. For a moment, the kitchen was quiet except for the hum of the kettle on the stove. I felt a strange mix of relief and lingering weariness. Robert, it's not going to be easy. You've built habits for decades, and you can't undo them overnight. Words alone won't be enough. He stepped closer, determination in his posture. I know, and I don't expect forgiveness or trust immediately. I just wanted you to know that I'm finally taking responsibility. I want to prove it with actions, not promises. I nodded slowly, a soft smile tugging at my lips. Then show me, Robert. Show me that you've truly changed. And in the meantime, I'm still going to Seattle. I'm still taking this trip. I'm still choosing my happiness, my adventure, my life. His shoulders slumped, a mixture of resignation and admiration crossing his face. I understand, Mum. And I'm proud of you, not just for leaving, but for standing up for yourself, for your dreams. I hope Michael knows how lucky he is. I laughed softly, the sound carrying relief and freedom. I hope he does too. And Robert, don't worry, you'll be fine. You'll learn to stand on your own 2 feet. Just promise me one thing, no more lies, no more hiding from responsibility, no more depending on anyone else to save you. He met my gaze steadily. I promise, Mum, I won't let you down again. And in that moment, I felt a shift not just in him, but in myself. The weight of decades of sacrifice, of invisibility, of being taken for granted was lifting. I was ready for adventure, for joy, for life on my own terms. Seattle, here I come. Once I reached the airport, Robert hugged me tightly. Have an amazing trip, Mum. Live your life. Don't look back. You deserve this. Tears pricked my eyes, but this time they were tears of hope, not sorrow. I clutched the letter he had given me and boarded the plane, feeling the weight of decades of guilt, sacrifice, and resentment lift from my shoulders. Once we were in the air, I finally opened the envelope. Inside was a heartfelt note. Mum, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of myself for finally starting to take responsibility. I hope this trip is everything you've dreamed of, and more. I love you always. A smile spread across my face. For the first time in decades, I felt unburdened, free to pursue my own happiness. Landing in Seattle, I was greeted by Michael at the airport, just as warm and kind as I remembered. His smile was genuine, and his eyes held the same spark I had fallen in love with all those years ago. Welcome, Shirley, he said, taking my hand, ready for an adventure. Over the next few weeks, I experienced a life I hadn't allowed myself to imagine. Long walks along the Puget Sound. Cozy dinners in his home with his grown children, trips to art galleries and bookshops, laughter stories shared over coffee and wine. I began writing again, inspired by the freedom to follow my own desires. Meanwhile, back home, Robert continued on his journey. He sent updates, sharing the challenges and small victories of building a life independent of my support. I watched it with pride as he grew into the man he had always had the potential to be. By the end of the month, I returned home for a short visit, refreshed and invigorated. Robert met me at the door, smiling genuinely. No shame, no guilt, just a young man embracing life responsibly. Welcome back, Mum, he said. You've earned every bit of this. And for the first time in my life, I realized that love doesn't mean endless sacrifice. Love means respect, freedom, and the courage to pursue joy even when it means stepping away from old patterns and letting others stand on their own. At 70, I had learned the most important lesson. It's never too late to choose yourself, to chase your dreams, and to find happiness even if it takes a lifetime to get there. The day I left for Seattle, the sky was impossibly clear, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of spring and the faint hum of life awakening around my small hometown. Robert arrived early, his hands trembling slightly as he held a small bouquet of white daisies, my favorite hand, a sealed letter. Don't open it until you're on the plane, he said, his voice almost shy. The sight of him like this, tender, yet finally grounded made my chest ache with a strange mix of love and relief. We drove to the airport in companionable silence, talking about trivial things, the weather, the news, his classes, the cleaning job he had started. The mundane conversation was strange and wonderful after years of tension, lies, and manipulation. It was just two people connecting, a mother and a son, without guilt, without drama, without expectation. At the security gate, we hugged, a long, silent embrace filled with all the years of unspoken love and unresolved hurt. "I love you, Mum," he whispered. "Have fun. Fall in love. Be happy. You deserve it more than anyone in the world." "I love you too, son," I replied, my voice catching, "and I'm proud of the man you're becoming." Once seated on the plane, I carefully opened Robert's letter. His handwriting, once chaotic and jagged, now seemed deliberate, almost reverent. "Mum," it began, "during these past few days, I've been thinking about all the times you were a hero without me noticing, when you worked double shifts to pay for my school books, when you sold your sewing machine to buy me a bicycle, when you pretended not to be hungry so I could eat more, when you stayed up all night taking care of me when I was sick. I took all of it for granted. Now I understand being a mother doesn't mean sacrificing yourself until you disappear. It means loving enough to teach independence. It means being brave enough to let go when it's time. Thank you for finally loving me enough to let me grow up. Fly high, Mum, literally and figuratively. With all my love and respect, Robert. Tears blurred my vision as I placed the letter back in my purse. Outside the window, clouds stretched to infinity, and for the first time in decades, I felt my own future was just as infinite. Michael met me at the Seattle airport with a bouquet of bright yellow roses. Seeing him again after 40 years was like stepping into a dream I had almost forgotten existed. His smile, now lined with age but still warm and genuine, made my heart flutter in a way I hadn't felt in decades. "Surely," he said as we hugged, "you're even more beautiful than I remembered." The days that followed were a revelation. Michael introduced me to the Pacific coast, where the ocean stretched endlessly, shimmering under the sunlight. He introduced me to his children, who welcomed me with open hearts, making me feel like I belonged somewhere outside my old routines. Michael cooked dinners for me on his deck, overlooking the water, while we shared stories, laughter, and silences that were comfortable, not tense. I was Shirley again, not just a mother, not just a widow, not just a seamstress. I was a woman with dreams, with worth, with a chance to start over. At the end of the month, Michael made me an offer that I had never imagined possible at 70. "I don't want this to end," he said gently. "I want you to consider moving to Seattle. Not immediately, not to change your life overnight, but to give us the chance to build something beautiful together." For a moment, my mind raced. My house, my friends, my familiar streets. But then I remembered Robert, his letter, the life I had lived too long for others and never for myself. I remembered the humiliation and disrespect I had endured, and I realized that perhaps the universe had given me this second chance precisely because I had earned it not by sacrifice alone, but by finally standing up for myself. What if it doesn't work out? I asked cautiously. Then we have had a beautiful adventure, Michael said simply, and at least we tried. But what if it does work out? What if after a lifetime of putting others first, you finally have the opportunity to be truly, completely happy? That night, I called Robert to tell him that. His response made my heart swell. "Mum, are you happy with him?" "Happier than I've been in decades," I said. "He treats me with respect. He values me. He makes me feel alive every day." "Then stay," he said, without hesitation. "Build the life you deserve. I'll be fine. In fact, I'll be better knowing you're finally living for yourself." 6 months later, I was packing the last of my belongings in my old house, preparing to move to Seattle permanently. Robert helped me carry boxes, showing a maturity and independence that filled me with hope. "You know the most ironic part?" he said one afternoon as we stacked framed family photos. "What? That by letting you go, I feel like I've finally gotten you back. Not just the mother who fixes everything, but the extraordinary woman you always were. The woman I never truly knew." Now, as I sit on Michael's deck, watching the Pacific Ocean stretch beyond the horizon, waiting for him to return from the market with ingredients for dinner, I reflect on all that has changed. Robert has grown into a responsible, capable man, building a life on his own terms. Valerie. She married someone who could maintain her lifestyle. It was probably the best outcome for everyone. And me, I finally understand that happiness isn't age-bound, that self-love is never selfish, and that a 70-year-old woman can start over, find love, chase dreams, and live fully. Michael and I were married last month in a small ceremony on the beach. Robert cried throughout, but they were tears of joy. "Mom," he said afterward, "that terrible night when Valerie humiliated Hewitt was the greatest gift I could have received. That night woke you up. It showed you that you deserved more. It gave you the courage to reclaim your happiness. And I did so. Now I ask you, reader, if life gives you a second chance, if happiness beckons at the edge of fear and convention, would you dare to take it? Because it's never too late to start over.